So I would like to request Harvey Segolam, the Chief Officer of the FSC Mauritius, to take the floor and say a couple of words. Thank you.
Thank you, Darius. Helen, the president of IOPS, Brandon, our good friend from Ireland, and chairperson of the IOPS Technical Committee. I'm Brogio, our good friend from the Commission in Italy, and having been very actively involved at the level of the OECD as well. Darius, from the Secretariat, distinguished counterparts, dear friends, it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you all to Mauritius and to welcome you all in these facilities that are very much new, but as you may have seen, it's known as the OECD and FSC Regional Center of Excellence. These facilities were launched exactly around a year ago when we launched these facilities. The objective was to really work in very close collaboration with regulators across financial services as well as law enforcement agencies, and in very close collaboration with the OECD in view of achieving three broad mandates. The first mandate was to, on an ongoing basis, provide capacity building and training programs, as well as enable knowledge sharing and expertise sharing between regulators across the world, as well as having a specialized focus on regulators within Africa. The second mandate was to work jointly with regulators as well as with international bodies, including the OECD, IOPS, the IOSCO, the IAIS, and the list goes on, in view of preparing and publishing papers that would address issues that the continent, meaning Africa, is really facing, and how is it that we need to tackle these particular issues from a regulatory perspective. And then building on that, the medium to longer term objective was for this center to become the driving force while working together with the OECD very closely in terms of producing and advising on minimum standards that needs to be applied in our local context. And when I say local context, I say the context of Africa, our continent, where realities are different, where we need to have standards and norms that speak or are aligned to the realities on the market. So these were the thinking, really, when we had this particular regional center of excellence set up. And I'm very pleased to know that since it has been set up in March last year, we have had a number of initiatives already regrouping a number of regulators. We've had programs with the Toronto Center, where we had very successful attendances. We had a number of other programs as well that we ran jointly with law enforcement agencies as well as regulatory bodies in the region. And today I'm very pleased to have this first workshop being enabled and facilitated primarily by the IOPS Secretariat. I think I'm looking forward to renewing such engagements as we go along, and so that we all as regulators can share our experiences and help each other in addressing and better understanding realities that we're all facing on the market. This particular workshop today has been thought internally by my team, and one of the reasons as to why we suggested to IOPS to try and keep the theme on transition from DB to DCs is because in many countries we are having to face with this reality. I think we're all very much aware of the complexities and the issues that are linked with this transition that we are all going through, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you in terms of your best experiences, of your understanding of how is it that you're dealing with such transition and issues, so that we can all put our heads together in addressing and helping each other in advancing in this field. I will not be too long. I will stop here. I'm looking forward to the next 3 days of engagement, of work, and also of entertainment. I am sure that, you know, we will not be spending all our time only between four walls, but we have also planned quite a few social activities that will allow you to feel in the Mauritian hospitality, and also to visit the island for those of you who have come here first time. My first major initiative internationally that I did when I joined the Commission back in 2017 was with the IOPS. And coincidence it is that my last initiative as the Chief Executive of the Commission is also one that is being organized with the IOPS. I am currently at the end of my mandate as the Chief Executive of the Commission, but I'm looking forward to forging relations and keeping these relations ongoing as we go along, and wearing different caps in the near future. I will be also looking at further renewing engagements with all of you, and seeing to it that collaboration, especially international collaboration, goes on. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brendan Kennedy. I am the chair of the Technical Committee of IOPS, and I promise I'll be very brief, if only because much of what I want to say has already been said. Most importantly, I would just like to thank our colleagues from Mauritius for their hospitality and their organisation and their work for organising this. It is great to be here in Mauritius, for some of us to be back here in Mauritius. Real pleasure, particularly if I could say on behalf of those of us who've come from a Northern Hemisphere winter to fly in here. It's bright and it's warm. It's a real pleasure to be here. So this conference, as you said, is the product of cooperation between the Mauritian FSC, IOPS and the OECD, and it's a real benefit from that cooperation. It's a very timely, relevant, important, difficult subject, and I think we can all learn a lot from it. And I think it's important to say that we can all learn a lot from each other, because we're all facing problems that there are a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences, and we all maybe have found partial solutions to part of the problem, but there's always something more we can learn. And I would encourage all of you to participate as much as possible today, and please use the opportunity of the questions and answers in particular to ask questions, to put forward your views, because the most important part of IOPS is, as you said, is the dialogue between all of us, our communication, because if only to learn that other people have similar problems and they're struggling with them as well, that's an important result from these discussions. So thank you again for your hospitality, and I'm looking forward to the day.
The Honourable Mahen Kumar Siroten, Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance. Mr. André Laboule, Senior Counsellor, Special Financial Advisor to the G20 Sherpa OECD and Secretary General of the IOPS. Mr. Ambrogio Rinaldi, Director of the Pensions Fund Supervision Commission of Italy and former Chairperson of the OECD Working Party on Private Pension. Mrs. Hélène Worrell, Deputy Chair of the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority and IOPS President. Mr. Brendan Kennedy, Chief Executive Officer of the Pension Authority of Ireland and Chairperson of the IOPS Technical Committee. Mr. Rajesh Ramlal, Acting Chairperson of the Financial Services Commission of Mauritius. Mr. Dhirendra Kumar Debi, Solicitor General of the Republic of Mauritius. Distinguished members of the Board of the Financial Services Commission of Mauritius. Representatives of the IOPS, representatives of the private pension industry of Mauritius, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Financial Services Commission of Mauritius, I would like to thank you all for joining us this morning on the occasion of the opening ceremony of the IOPS International Conference. I also wish a warm welcome to the IOPS delegates for coming from overseas to attend today's conference on the theme of financial and governance issues in private pension schemes. Without further ado, I am pleased to welcome Mr. Rajesh Ramlal, Acting Chairperson of the Financial Services Commission of Mauritius, for the very first opening remarks of today's ceremony.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mauritius. Honorable Mayan Kumar Siratan, the Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance. Mr. André Laboule, Senior Counselor, Special Financial Advisor to the G20 Sherpa of the OECD and Secretary General of the IOPS. Mr. Ambrogio Rinaldi, Director of the Pensions Fund Supervision Commission of Italy and former chairperson of the OECD Working Party on Private Pensions. Ms. Helen Powell, Deputy Chair of the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority and IOPS President. Mr. Brendan Kennedy, CEO of the Pensions Authority of Ireland and Chairperson of the IOPS Technical Committee. Mr. Dhirendra Kumar Debi, Solicitor General of the Republic of Mauritius. Distinguished members of the Board of the Financial Services Commission, representatives of the IOPS, representatives of the private pension industry of Mauritius, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. For delegates and speakers coming from overseas, of course, I would mention a very warm welcome to Mauritius. It is indeed my great pleasure and honor to address you all for the opening ceremony of the International Conference on Private Pensions, jointly organized by the International Organization of Pension Supervisors, also known as IOPS, and the Financial Services Commission, the FSC. And as you might already know, this is the second time that the FSC is hosting an IOPS event, the last one having been held in October 2017. Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, as a start, I wish to commend the IOPS community for bringing to our shores such relevant topics as we shall discuss today. It is undeniable that financial services and governance issues in the private pensions industry takes great importance in the setting up of and the implementation of our regulatory framework. The role of the pensions industry has become increasingly significant in today's evolving business environment. Pension funds act as stable consumer savings vehicles and are important players in the quest for future economic growth and development. The private pensions industry is a complex, multifaceted, but essential one. As a result, the forms and traditions of private pension provision prevalent in each country heavily determine supervisory activities. Pension supervisory frameworks are established in order to protect and instill confidence in those who are working hard to save for their future retirement. With the changing and ever-evolving landscape of pensions, regulators and policymakers around the world are taking steps to make regulatory frameworks for funded pension arrangements adaptable as well as, and more importantly, robust. The FSC is a governing member of the IOPS since 2005, and as such, actively participates in the annual IOPS and OECD events, our legislative framework for the private pensions industry is now a comprehensive one. And as you're most probably aware of, satisfy the standards set up by the IOPS and the OECD. As a regulator for the non-bank financial services sector and the global business in Mauritius, the FSC is tasked with promoting a safe and stable environment for investors and consumers of financial services and financial products. In line with its mandate, the FSC emphasizes a lot on financial stability and consumer protection through proper conduct by financial institutions and financial inclusion. Hence, I'm deeply convinced that we as supervisors are required to adopt an intensive, proactive, and preemptive approach. This is the vision we have carried out and the strategy we have implemented at the Commission over the last few years. Honourable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, at present in Mauritius, private pension schemes are governed by the Private Pension Schemes Act of 2012, which is administered by the FSC, and the Act allows for defined contribution schemes and defined benefit schemes, which include hybrids. These schemes are mainly occupational in nature. They capture around 90,000 employees of the private sector, and the corresponding value of pension assets amount to 38 billion Mauritian rupees, or approximately $1 billion US. By setting up private pension schemes, employers cater for employees' additional retirement benefits over and above the two mandatory pillars, which are the National Pension Fund and the National Savings Fund. Life expectancy is increasing in Mauritius, as it is, I'm sure, elsewhere, and adequate provisions for pensions will ensure that beneficiaries are able to maintain a decent standard of living during retirement. Owing to common trends in societal and market changes, the work of pension supervisors across the world is getting impacted. Some of the drivers of change are inter alia: aging populations, the increasing commercialization and globalization of the pensions industry, more sophisticated investment products to cater for long-term investment horizons, the shift of risks from employers to members of pension schemes, that is through, as mentioned, from DB to DC, and the significant challenges of ensuring that members understand, and that is what is important, the risks they're taking, and the widespread adoption of risk-based and or principle-based approaches to regulation in replacement of compliance-based approaches with detailed rules and regulations. One of the main regulatory and supervisory challenges that we are currently facing in Mauritius is the increasing number of requests that the FSC is getting for private pension schemes regarding DP to DC transfers and conversions. When such requests are made, the FSC needs to ensure that the scheme, the governing body, and the sponsoring employer have satisfied certain specific conditions prior to issuing any approval. Currently, the Private Pension Schemes Act does not provide an explicit framework for such transfers and conversions. I'm deeply honored to announce that we have worked on a set of guidelines to provide a clear roadmap on the matter to stakeholders of the industry. We cannot have a more appropriate platform than today's to launch the public consultation for these guidelines. We therefore rely on the high participation of stakeholders in submitting their feedback by the deadline of the 27th of March 2020. Honourable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the agenda of the conference is impressively rich. Throughout the day, we will have the opportunity to address many significant topics such as how to increase coverage of private pensions, how to deal with underfunded defined benefit, DB, pension schemes, and how to improve governance of private pension funds. I'm looking forward to very fruitful discussions during both morning and afternoon sessions. I also wish to encourage all participants to actively engage in today's discussions and debates, to share their country's experience and not to hesitate to ask questions, not only to our experts, but also to one another, in order to make this a truly interactive and lively event. Before I conclude, I would like to take this opportunity to once again sincerely thank the IOPS for co-hosting this event with the FSC. It is indeed an immense privilege to have been chosen as the host for the IOPS International Conference Supervisory Training Workshop and the committee meetings a second time in such short lapse of time. So on this note, I wish you all a pleasant day, and thank you for your kind attention, and of course, enjoy the island and the weather.